Hi again, folks. Here we are. It's been quite some weeks since my last video, and that's mainly because I've just been working out what to do next on this vehicle. If you'd watched the last episode, you would have heard me say that I was getting it ready to have its certification process gone through. And so I did have that done. I had my first inspection with a local inspector who had the car for half a day and went through everything that he could see that he wasn't quite happy with. Quite a few things came up, some kind of major or semi-major and some pretty minor. So I'll just go through some of those briefly. But before I do that, I guess it's just wanted to sort of point out the fact that, you know, if you guys are here in New Zealand, you know, you might be familiar with this process here, and then what's involved and how strict they're actually getting with this process. For those of you outside New Zealand who probably are not familiar with the process, basically any car that's modified from factory, in other words, has any sort of modification done to it, being it just different wheels or changing seats, right down to an engine swap like this car, it should be certified as a process. Sometimes you can get away without doing some things, depending on how much your warrant of fitness guy is prepared to overlook things. But if you do a lot of modifications, then eventually you're going to get to the stage where the car is going to be gone through by a qualified certifier, and they will make sure any modifications you've done are to a reasonable standard. So again, that's what I've had to go through for this car. I've already done it once before, I guess about 9 years ago, when I first went through this car and did the restoration of the body and put the nose cone on. At that stage I also put a 5-speed Toyota box behind the original Vauxhall 2.3 engine, and that's when a certification became necessary because of the new gearbox. With the new gearbox I had to shorten the drive shaft, so that straight away is a modification that needs certifying, and also had to have a drive shaft loop installed by a local engineering shop. So that was done 9 years ago, went through fairly easily, and I used the car for a few years before taking it off the road to do the new engine. So here I am, the car for all intents and purposes is finished. However, now I'll have to go through and just fine tune a few things that the certifier believes are just not quite up to par, and some of them are justified. Probably most of them are justified, to be honest. I guess where it comes a little bit sticky with me is the fact that a lot of those things that were signed off 9 years ago are now being pulled up as not being up to scratch. So it's just little things, a lot of it, like using the wrong bolts to hold the new seats in, or there's not enough bolt protruding out past the lock nut, you know, just silly little things which, you know, they've got their standards for, and you've got to you've got no choice really but to do as they ask you to do, otherwise they won't pass the car. Moving on to larger items, I suppose. Essentially the car is riding too low. There's not enough clearance between the bump stops. So at the moment I am looking to having to lift the car back up, probably probably around 40 mil, which is fine. It just means I have to get some new front springs. The rear springs I have already, the original springs can go back in, which will lift it back up that much. The front springs are a whole different matter. For those of you, who've done this before, you know how tricky it can be to get new springs made to suit the ride height you want. So at this stage I'm probably I'm making plans on going to a coilover suspension in the front, some coilover shocks, having some custom made. I'm seeing a couple of guys in the UK doing that, and it seems to me that's the best way forward. I can obviously adjust the ride height to suit whatever's required for clearances, and that includes getting the ride height even from side to side. Again, you guys that are familiar with these cars and the fact that they're a slant 4, a big old heavy slant 4 from the factory, you'll know that they have a slightly stiffer or longer spring to go on the left hand side to counteract the weight of the slant 4 leaning over. And it's only a small amount, but again it's supposed to be even height from side to side. So with a adjustable coilover shock, that should be a fairly simple process to get that ride height bang on from side to side as well. As well as the fact that I was due to replace all the shock absorbers anyway. I was already up for that expense, so I think I will just spend a little bit more money and go to full coilover shocks in the front and just standard in the rear with some new shock absorbers. So I will just need to run that past the certifier before I go and spend the money and make sure he's actually going to be happy with that process. I'm hoping all it means is just replacing some of the mounting bolts top and bottom for the new shock absorbers. But again, I don't exactly know what he will ask me to do, but before I go ahead and purchase those, I will make sure I find out, of course, for the expense of getting those made and shipped from the UK. So yeah, I have my list from him. There's a little 3-page report here of some items he noted down. One annoying little thing which I will point out because it might save somebody else some work down the track is the seat installations. So before or during that first certification I spoke about 9 years ago, I had installed later model seats in this car. This car came out with the fixed pivot type seats, being an early model, and I upgraded it to the later model sliding and reclining seats that came out of these cars. And so to do that is a completely different mounting system. So they had to be bolted through the floor. And so at that stage, to get it certified, the requirement is that you put certain size plate on the bottom and top, I believe, of the floor pan to reinforce the floor pan where you bolt it through. And so the local crowd that I had do that job and the diff loop did that job for me for certification. And it passed, and that was all good and well. However, the certifier is now saying that where the plates have been mounted up to underneath the car, they have been mounted directly to the underseal of the car, and the underseal is considered a compactable material, even though it's a millimetre thick, and being the age of the car, it's quite hard. But he wants me to take all those plates off, which are riveted on as well. Take all the plates off from the underside, scrape off the underseal for underneath the body where those plates are hitting, and then put them back in again, so that it's metal to metal. So again, it's a frustrating task to have to go through. It doesn't seem necessary. I don't see how it makes the car safer, but there you go, that's what I'm required to do. And along with that, the bolts that we used are not of the right specification also. So I have to go through and replace the bolts that we used for bolting in those seat rails. And then it's just, apart from those, shocks and seat mounting plates, most of it is just sort of smaller stuff which I can work through. Just replacing bolts here and there, or making longer bolts, or upgrading to the right sort of bolt. So annoying, but not impossible to do. So I guess I just need to get on with that task if I want to get this car, road legal. I've sort of just put it aside for the last, it's been I think 6 weeks or thereabouts since I did any video of this car. I have to say that going through that certification process was pretty demotivating. But again, it's just something I have to get over and deal with. And again, if I want this car to be finished, I've just got to go through it and do the things the certifiers ask me to do. And from that stage on, once it's certified, then I should be able to get a warrant of fitness, and it will continue to get a warrant of fitness from then on out. So that's where I'm at. I've already done one little job in the boot, and that was because I've relocated the battery to the boot. It does have to have a breather pipe from the battery box to the outside of the car, so I've done that, and he wanted a couple of extra bolts to mount that fix the battery box in. So I've put a couple of weeks of fixing in for that battery box. So that's a little job that I just did one weekend because I thought I should make a start. So that's done. Now it's just a matter of going through my list here and going and purchasing some correct grade bolts and replacing those where necessary, and then just get the coilover shock modification okay to go ahead with. Replace the springs in the back, and that's the crux of it really. Hopefully, in saying that, he didn't finish the job. He ran out of time on the day to complete his list of tasks, so he's got to go through the car again yet, and he still hasn't road tested the car and the brakes and so forth. So once I've done the list of tasks here, I'll then take the car back to him to sign off on those items, and then undoubtedly he will add some other items to the list. I'm just hoping it's nothing too major. Okay, so that's where I'm at. I will take video over the little bits and pieces I do over the course of the next, I don't know, probably a few weeks, to be honest. It's gone into winter months here now in New Zealand, so we sort of don't have much daylight in the evenings as we used to, of course. So I'll be working on the car on the weekends mostly, and maybe a little bit at night, after I get home from work. So this will take a little longer to do now with the shorter days, but that's okay. I guess I'll be aiming to get it finished and ready to use this coming spring, coming October-ish, is what I'm tentatively aiming for, if not sooner. Alright, so that's where I'm at. Thanks for watching. Appreciate all your comments that you guys will be making, and I'll just keep on with this and keep you updated as we go. Alright, thanks again. Bye now.